Right after a long-awaited break. Unfortunately, I've been quite busy. Moved into a new place, which is quite nice. So we got a nice workspace here instead of that tiny little table that we had before. So yeah, we're gonna get on to some people's questions that they wanted. So one of them that they wanted me to make was a steak, actually, and like how you could do it. Very nice, like inside without a barbecue or anything. So that's what we're going to show you today with like a couple sides. So for one of our sides for this dish, we're just going to do some potatoes, and then we're also going to do a nice butternut squash puree, just for a little bit of elegance to the dish, to show you what you can do. But I'm not just going to do roast potatoes or mashed potatoes, we're going to do potato fondant. So you just start by peeling your potatoes. A little bit off of each one. If you have a cookie cutter or some kind of shape cutter, this would be a good time to use it. You get a nice uniform shape out of all of them. But since most people don't have them, then we'll just cut them how we see them now. So nice and flat on both sides, so that's what you want. And you want roughly the same size on each one. So you see how both these are the same width. So when you are working with potatoes or any like white vegetables, like parsnips as well, you kind of want to leave them in water while you're not using them or while you're like about to use them. Otherwise they're going to oxidize, which means they're going to go brown, which is what you don't want at all. So for the third part of this dish, we're going to do some butternut squash puree with it, just to add like a little bit of texture to the plate and a little bit of flavor, which is absolutely delicious. So we'll take off the tag. This is obviously quite a big one. You don't have to go this big. Some people do, obviously, you know. Yeah, we'll just cut it up and get it ready to go. So cut it down. You can just use a peeler. You don't want to cut yourself or anything. We'll cut it here because I want to take out the seeds out of this that are in the middle. But we're also going to peel it first because it's a lot easier when it's whole to peel it. So now we're all peeled. We're going to cut it in half, spoon it out, all the seeds, and then it'll be ready to go.
Okay. Your roommate cameo! Josh, your first time on the channel.
Bear break. So now we're just gonna cube it up. Just a rough cut, basically. It's gonna cook down anyways, and we're gonna blend it up. So it doesn't really matter if they're all the same size or not. Be very careful when you're cutting with a knife. Obviously it's sharp, so you can cut yourself. So there's a way that we like to hold knives. It's called the claw. So it's basically your 4 fingers kind of at an angle like this, and then your thumb just tucked behind nicely, just like that. You're never gonna cut yourself as long as you're not like really going crazy with it, you know? Now we're just gonna put a little bit of milk in, pretty much to cover. You can kind of tell if when it's cooking down, if you need some more or not. We'll actually add a little bit of butter, just to add a little bit of richness to this dish. So we'll just throw a knob of butter in. That'll melt down with it. It'll add a really nice, rich flavor to it. It'll be beautiful. It doesn't matter how much butter you add. I mean, obviously, the more you add, the more rich and like buttery or fatty it will taste, but in a good way, trust me. But this is just maybe like 2 tablespoons is how much I added to how much squash I had there. So let's just turn it on. We'll let this cook until it's softened. So we're just gonna turn on the heat to, well, I guess the stove says 5 right there, but pretty much you just want it to be like a nice low simmer. You don't want to be boiling, especially when you're cooking with cream or butter or milk for that sake. If you're cooking with really high heat with any like cream-based liquids, it tends to curdle really easily. So you just want to use like a nice low simmer. Low and slow is always the best. All right, so now while our butternut squash is cooking, we're gonna get our potatoes going because those will take maybe like 30 minutes as well. So we're just gonna feel this oil here, make sure that's good to go. So I'm just gonna put my hand on it and see if it's too hot to put my hand on, you know? No, that's not what you should do. Just hover your hand over it. You should feel a little bit of heat. So we're just about there. It's also good if you take a little bit of water, just in your fingertips, flick it in. There should be a little bit of splattery. That will let you know that the oil is ready to go. All right, so while we got this pan heating up for our potatoes, you're gonna want to get your oven going. Let's just set it to 400. That should be perfect. Get a little bit of water on our fingertips. You can hear that nice sizzle, so that's good to go. So what I did a minute before this is I strained out my potatoes. You don't want a lot of water unless you want a little bit of burns on your hands. I mean, I'm kind of used to it, but I know you guys don't want that. So you're just going to want to put them in. All right, so now you can see a little bit of browning on the side. So that's always a good sign. You could just turn them over. So there's a nice color that we want right there. So we're just going to set these in another pan because unfortunately this one's not oven safe. So we'll just be using this pan here. Nice cast iron. You can use any pan that fits them. Anything that can go in an oven pretty much is perfect. So there we go. There's the nice sear on the top. Almost like a scallop if you've ever had one of those. That's kind of what you're looking for. Just a nice brown evenly across. So yes, this may look like a lot of butter, and that's just because I don't have any stock or anything that I would like to add to this. So we're just gonna do pretty much a butter, a little bit of water, some nice herbs, some garlic, and then these will be really nice and flavorful. So for the garlic, you don't have to worry about cutting it up or anything. You could just crush it just to release that nice aroma and flavor. We'll throw in some, I've actually got some nice fresh herbs this time. You could use dried, of course, but fresh is always better. So throw some nice thyme in. I'll use some of this beautiful rosemary. Rosemary is always a very, very good choice when it comes to working with potatoes. So you basically want to fill water until it's almost just over half for where the potatoes are. It's going to cook all the way through nicely. You're still going to have some water, or you could also use stock, of course, as I said. You're still going to have some in the pan, but this is going to be a really nice, reduced, flavorful water. It sounds kind of nasty, but it's actually really delicious. You could use it for a lot of different things. So yeah, we'll just throw this in the oven, and then we'll check on them occasionally just to see if they're ready. The best way to check it is you could use like a nice temperature probe, or you could use something that's basically got a nice point to it. You just stab it through. If it stabs through really easily, then you know that it's ready. So yeah, we'll throw these in. Alright, so now we can see, we'll just take some tongs here, push them together. You could use a fork as well, stab through. So you see how that's falling apart nice and easily. So this is pretty much ready. So we'll just add in the butternut squash right into here. I don't want to use all this liquid because I want to be able to control how thin or thick my puree is. That's probably a good amount. You don't want to fill it too full. If you fill a blender too full, it won't get the right consistency that you want. It'll be kind of starchy and it'll miss a couple bits. But if you added too much liquid off the start, then you could always add a bit more butternut squash just to even it out. Beautiful. This leftover milk that you have, or cream, could be a very nice drink if you want, or you could just add less next time if you want to. But For my purposes anyways, I don't really have much of a use for it. Alright, so now we're just gonna give it a taste. I'm using 2 spoons, one for grabbing out, one for the tasting part. We'll see if we need some salt. So I could use a little bit. And this is ready. Alright, so before you go to cooking your steak, you want to leave it out for a little bit, get it to room temperature. If it's fridge cold, then it's going to get really kind of dry on the outside before it's fully cooked. So you always want like your proteins to be almost room temperature before you go to start cooking it. Alright, so I'm just going to add a little bit of oil just to the pan here. That should be good. We'll just circle it around here. Now we're gonna lay these bad girls on. Alright, so there's a finger rule, as some of you may or may not know, for cooking a steak. So basically, let's say I'm going for a rare. You're gonna want to put your thumb and index finger together, almost like a perfect sign, and then you feel just on your palm, and that's how this steak should feel. So then that's rare, and then you move to your next finger. That should be medium rare. You move to your next finger, medium well, and then well done. But if you want a steak done well, then you go for these. If you want a steak well done, then you go for the end. So now we've got a sear on one side. We're just gonna flip it over to the other side. Give it a sear over there too. Now once we get a sear on this, since these ones are a little bit thicker than most, we're gonna throw it onto a pan. That's perfect because we got an oven set for 400. We're just gonna finish them to the cooking temp that we want. So with this pan, don't get rid of it. This is all good flavor in here. We're gonna throw some butter in there. A nice healthy portion. We're gonna let that cook down a bit. We're gonna also add some garlic in. I'm gonna add some rosemary as well, but with fresh herbs like this, you kind of want to add them in near the end, otherwise they'll kind of burn a bit and lose their flavor quite fast. So steaks have come out of the oven, so I'm kind of going for like a medium rare, kind of. So we're just gonna put them back in. So since I'm going for a medium rare, I pretty much want these to be just under rare right before I'm going to baste them. So this is where you get all the full flavor that you want. We'll throw that nice rosemary in, let that cook, and then you're just going to want to take a spoon and spoon it over. Now that we're done basting, we're just going to let these rest a little bit. You're going to want to let them rest for at least 10 minutes. That's why I said before. So when I tempt it, it tempted just below rare. So then that way, once you're done basting and once you're resting them on the side, then that's when they're going to be that perfect medium rare that you want. So the temperature, it goes usually 115 is about rare. That's perfect. 135 is like medium rare, and then 140 is about medium, and then 100, 145, 150 is about medium well, and then anything past that is very well done. These potatoes now, I'm just going to take them out. Oh, just about grab the handle. Don't do that. That's a terrible mistake. So we're just going to grab them out. We're going to rest them where our steak is. Right, so for like a steak this size, you don't really need to leave it in the oven for that long. I just always highly recommend using a temperature probe to check anything. It's always very accurate as long as you have it calibrated. Like the finger rule works, but using a temperature probe is always going to give you your best results. So for before you throw it in the oven, you always want to just double check and make sure that you're at the right temperature, and then you would know if you need more time or if you need to just start basting. So now it's been about 10 minutes. So we're just gonna cut these steaks up Usually you don't, if you're serving a steak, you'd want to serve it nice and whole, but I'll just cut it for you to see the nice temperature there. So there you go. You're looking at a nice temperature right there. That's beautiful. Nice cross section. If you want, you could do, if you have some nice flaky salt, that's really nice for garnishing. It's kind of like the big chunk salt. But what I have is a nice Merlot infused salt. So we're just gonna garnish that with it. I'll cut it up the rest of the way. We'll showcase a little plating here. All right, so as you can see, there's a certain way to cutting a steak, most meats anyways. So it's always cut against the grain. If you're cutting with the grain, then that's when you get that really tough piece of steak. So you kind of want to look for, you see these grooves in the steak, that's kind of like where you want to cut along. So most of them are flowing this way, so I know that I need to cut it this way. With experience, you'll be able to find which way a steak will cut nicely. All right, so for purees, when you're putting them on a plate, there's countless ways that you could put it on a plate. But for this sake, we're just gonna do a nice swoosh. Shout out to Nike. Just do a nice one of those. And that's quite simple, but also elegant. Looks really nice. You could also do, put this in a nice bottle. You could do some nice dots around. You could also get a nice spatula, scrape it across, whatever suits your fancy. There's also the splatter one that you can do. So I'll do two different ones here, just to showcase the differences. So this is kind of like abstract in a way. It kind of showcases like the whole plate. Right there, you just do a bunch of little swooshes around. It kind of takes up all that like blank space on a plate, which is quite nice. So we'll lay our nice fondants on the plate. And then our nice steak. And you could kind of fan it open just so that to showcase your cooking ability there. And then with a nice sauce, that would be perfect. You could also add some more vegetables if you want to.